All right, this is Sports for Real, and it's been an interesting week for me, as well as all the action taking place in college and pro football. And I just want to take a few minutes to come on and get you updated on what I've been seeing things lately. And it's everything seems to tie together. So I want to start out talking about the Jaguars. But first, hold up, share my screen here. Hold on. Let me get it right. Here we go. Okay, so all right, as you can see on the screen here, that is a upended quarterback of the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence. Before I even get into the backdrop of this, let me give you some background information. Sunday was the first home game for the Jaguars. They had blown a two-score lead down in Miami and ended up losing the game on the last second kick. Controlled the game throughout, but they didn't finish. Lose the game. They come in and they had Cleveland for their first. Trevor Lawrence has an endorsement deal with Everbank, and for this game only, they temporarily renamed the stadium from Everbank Stadium to Trevor Bank Stadium. So everything was all set up for a Jaguars victory. But the Browns looked like a completely different team. Watson had time to throw the ball, and he showed flashes of why he was the highly paid quarterback that the Browns sought out in the first place. And they jumped out to a 16-3 lead, much like Jacksonville did in Miami, and had to hold on. They got a sack to go up by 5 late in the game, and they held on. It came down to the last play. Jaguars threw up a Hail Mary kind of play and hit the receiver in the hands, and he couldn't come down with it. They ended up losing the game, 18-13. So the fans came out, and they weren't too happy about it, and they let the Jaguars know. Now, myself, I have a new venture. I am going to be all year long when the Jaguars games let out. I am going to be working outside the stadium doing some work with the fans. There's a new adventure for individual journalism called Fango. And what Fango does, they post representatives in all the major NFL cities, and the representatives interview the fans as they come out of the stadium. And if you go to fangomedia.com, you'll be able to look up all the different teams so far who's had home games, and you get a report on that particular team. It just so happens that Fango is working with myself because I am the representative for Jacksonville. And I was out there Sunday and I got a chance to talk to the fans and I got some interesting comments. Now, if you're interested in Fango and what we have to offer, just click the link in the description and you'll be able to go directly to the site and find out some interesting commentary from not only myself, but the fans and how they feel about Trevor Lawrence. And then you have the other teams, they all feel the same way about their particular teams. So, very, very interesting commentary that you're going to get on this particular channel. But I talked to the people about Lawrence's performance, and they were not very happy. So, after all my package was sent up and cut up, um, it was titled, "Are the Jaguar fans, have they had enough?" And what they mean, have they had enough of Trevor Lawrence? Trevor Lawrence has been struggling. He hadn't done a whole lot to justify getting a new $250 million contract that he signed over the summer. And the thing is, the team has been struggling. Um, they destroyed an inept Carolina team last year toward the end of the season, but then they started losing games, and they really haven't won anything since. And this happens as they're trying to determine who their franchise quarterback is, and he still got paid. So what gives? Does anybody that's playing quarterback position Are they going to necessarily get paid? Or do they have to actually earn their pay? Now, a couple of years ago, when Patrick Mahomes signed his deal, it was understandable why he got paid because he always has his team hanging around somewhere trying to win a championship. They won the last two Super Bowls and they won one before that. So Mahomes, you can justify his salary, but everybody else you can't. Now, Dak Prescott of the Cowboys, they finally signed him to a new deal. And then this was right before the Cleveland game. I mean, exactly a couple hours before that game started. So he went out on the field knowing that he was set for life, and he went out and played like it. Now the Saints kind of brought him down to earth this week because the Saints whipped them the same way they whipped the Browns. So this NFL thing, you never know from week to week who's going to do what. So we got to wait another couple of weeks until things settle down, and then we'll see which teams have what. But yes, but if you're interested in what the Jaguar fans, some of them have to say about Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, tune in to Fango at fangomedia.com. And again, there are all videos from all the home games that have taken place so far. Plus, you'll find me. This is the actual video that I pulled from that particular program. All right. So now, the next thing I want to talk about, if you've been paying attention to the programs that I put out, you will note that I've covered a lot of different programs concerning the Pac 12 and its destruction. They had 12 teams, and out of those 12 teams, 10 of them left, leaving only Washington State and Oregon State to try to keep the conference alive. Now, they didn't try to keep the conference alive just out of the goodness of their heart. They tried to go somewhere too, but nobody else wanted them. And that left them to fend for themselves. So as it stands, as you look at this graphic that I have here, you see where all the teams went. Oregon State, they had nowhere to go. And then you have Washington State, they didn't go anywhere. But Oregon and Washington, they went to the Big Ten. UCLA, USC went to the Big Ten. And Utah, Colorado, Arizona State all headed down to the Big 12. So what does that leave Arizona, Oregon State, and Washington State? Well, what they decided to do was try to take the 2-year provision to remain as the conference, and that gives them time to try to revive the conference as it stood. And what has taken place since then, they signed a deal where they would go play some games with the Mountain West, and they had an agreement where that would give Oregon State and Washington State a legitimate schedule to play, and maybe even make a bowl game. And the beautiful thing about it is it allowed both teams to be able to keep the money that was in the coffers of the Pac-12. Not only did those teams pack up and leave, they tried to take the money with them. But court proceedings said, no, you cannot take that money. And I think that left Oregon State and Washington State in a great position. Well, the other two teams besides Oregon State and Washington State, you still had California and Stanford. They couldn't really find a home either, but they did find a home in the ACC. They're going to make a lot of money in time with the ACC, but at what cost? They're going to have to take some very, 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 very long distance trips across country multiple times a season just to get through an ACC campaign. But here's the thing. That's not so bad when it comes to football, but we're talking about the other sports. You have basketball, they're going to be on the plains more frequent, and then you have the teams that's playing soccer and baseball and a whole bunch of other games where these teams are going to be on the road, and that is not a good thing for a lot of the students. And let me give you some insight as to why. I got so many things pulled up. But before I do that, let me show you what it's going to look like for some of these teams as they have to travel. This graphic here is showing you California and Stanford and some of the road trips they're going to have to take For instance, when they had to go play Syracuse, that's a 6 hour, 30-minute flight. To get down to Virginia is 6 hours and 40 minutes. And from Florida State, which you have California is going to be doing this weekend, that is 6 hours, 32 minutes. So as you can see, that is a lot of flying. And we're talking about the football team who's not going to have to do but a couple of trips. But you start talking basketball, and then you add in the fact that non-revenue teams like golf, tennis, these kids are going to be missing an awful lot of time from class. And Stanford and California, those are high end schools. And you can't just show up there thinking you're just going to play sport and not be expected to perform academically. And, all right, not yet. Okay, I almost messed up. So I had considered all the things that these student athletes would do. But evidently, the people who went for these realignment dollars, they didn't think anything about it. I think if they did think anything about it, they looked at these athletes as pawns. I mean, you just guys just out there going to make some money for the school, and you better like it. Because if you don't want to do it, we go find somebody else who can do the traveling and playing that you don't want to do. So what are you going to do? You're going to play or you're going to shut up? Well, you know how that's going to go, especially now with college athletes getting paid. Um, they really don't have much of a leg to stand on because what you really have is professional sports in college athletics now. There's no more amateurism. That went out the door when they started getting paid. And because they're getting paid, you start to see some of the rules change that allow some of these things to happen that makes it look like pro sports, mainly the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball. So, having said that, I just happened to run across an article where these athletes were talking about their experiences having to do all this traveling as part of the realignments. They only considered what could be made with football, and like this person here, she's talking about how they have to go to class and these long trips they have to take to go across country, and that's hurting them in the classroom. And nobody seems to be too concerned about that. And I think that the point that they're making is very, very valid. But I think there's a remedy to all that. So now, let me go back to the Pac-12 here. Let me show you this. Just give me a second here, and I'm going to show you the point that I'm trying to make. I showed you before where all these teams left the Pac-12. Well, everybody had kicked dirt on the Pac-12, but I always said that I think that in the end, all this realignment, the big winner in all this is going to be the Pac-12. Now, check this out. Just last week, it was announced that the Mountain West and the Pac-12 were in their agreement that they have in place now to play these games with each other. But look what the Pac-12 came up with. The Pac-12 has decided to accept conference members. They're going to take Boise State, they're going to take San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State. So with those four schools, plus the two that they already have, that is 6 teams. They still need to come up with at least 2 more to remain a bowl eligible conference. Now, here's the beauty of it all. I've been telling you all along that I think in the end, Stanford and California will wind up coming back to the Pac-12. Why do I say that? Well, they're going to make big money with the ACC. Right now, they're both making limited money. But they're going to look over at Oregon State and they're going to look at Washington State and they're going to see they don't have to split all that money 12 different ways like they were doing before. They're going to be bringing in good money. So let's just say the ACC gives each school $50 million. Well, if the Pac-12 can get it together and they can offer their school, say, $35 million, is that better to take the 35 million and not have to do all that excessive travel like Stanford and Cal is doing, or is it worth it to do that with all that traveling for 15 million more dollars? I think in the end, because of all the wear and tear on all the smaller scale teams, that Stanford and California will take that buyout and return to the Pac-12. Now, keep in mind, Florida State and Clemson wants to leave the ACC, but they're stuck because they signed that land grant rights deal that keeps them into the conference for another 13 years, 12 years, the 2036. Well, if Florida State and Clemson finds their way out of that conference, it could be conceivable that they may go all the way out to the Pac-12 and join that conference. They can be a big fish and they can make big money. And then that would make them eligible to go out to the playoffs to play against the teams that they're used to playing all along. So it might be an advantage for a Florida State or Clemson to go all the way to the Pac-12 for that specific reason. Why am I saying that? Well, you have to know the history of Florida State. Florida State hadn't always been in big conferences like the ACC. When I first noticed Florida State in the early 80s, they were in the Metro Conference. They were playing schools like Louisville and Southern Miss, and they would play South Carolina, who used to be part of the Metro. After they left the ACC, then they went to the SEC. So all these schools, it's not like they're not familiar with each other, and it's not like they aren't capable of playing each other again. So it wouldn't be inconceivable to me for Florida State to take that trip out to the coast and make that extra money, because it seemed like that's the only reason why they want to leave the ACC in the first place. But what's lost in all this is the fact that nobody's talking about academics anymore. It's all about money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Even in high schools, they got NIL. Money, 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 money. Nobody's talking about education. And because of that, it's another eroding factor that contributes to the downfall, I think, of the United States, because all the standards are being lowered across the board for that almighty dollar. And eventually, something has to give. It's going to be a collapse somewhere. And if you're not prepared for all the things that could possibly happen, you're going to have a problem. So Florida State and Clemson, they're going to get their money eventually. When they're going to get it, I don't know. But keep in mind that I'm telling you right now that it's not inconceivable that Florida State or Clemson could wind up all the way out in the Pac-12. It makes about as much sense as Stanford and California going to the ACC, but the precedent has been set. This is pro sports now. So what difference does it make? And to keep it in context with pro sports, when the Atlanta Falcons first came in the league, there wasn't a NFC South. They were in NFC West. They went to San Francisco and Los Angeles every year to play against the Rams and the 49ers. And they were in the same division with the Saints. So this is pro football all over again. It's all about money. But I think that the Pac-12 is going to come back. And as I've said all along, they're going to be the big winner in all this realignment stuff, because everybody abandoned ship, but they couldn't take the money with them, and it was left there for two teams to manage. Now they've come up with a plan to get all these people to come with them. So far, they got 4 schools. That gives them 6. They need a couple more schools, and I don't think it's going to be a problem. The last report I saw on that they were going down to Texas trying to get some teams out of there. Rice may be a good candidate. Maybe UTEP. UTEP is on the same level as a San Diego State or Fresno State. And just like all these other big schools that now, they had to start at a small conference somewhere. So, yeah, Colorado State is small time now. But if they plan on a big schedule, they're going to get better recruits. They're going to become a better program. So keep an eye on the Pac-12 as the moves they're making now to remain relevant. And as I said before, I think they're going to be shining the brightest out of everybody after all this is over with. And I don't think USC and UCLA is going to come back, not until maybe 20 years or so. But eventually, the Pac-12 will reform, and it's going to be business as usual like it used to be. All right, so that's it. Let me go back over what I was talking about today. I started out talking about Trevor Lawrence. Um, Mr. Lawrence, his fans aren't too happy with him right now. Um, he said it himself that the offense sucks, and that's not a good thing when you're trying to compete. And you got to have everything hitting on all cylinders, and you can't give away games like they did in Miami. And then you got to win games against teams you're supposed to beat, like Cleveland. So maybe Jacksonville isn't what people thought they were. People got all excited because they won all their preseason games. But I keep telling people that doesn't mean a thing. That's just a dress rehearsal and an opportunity for some guys to make the team that otherwise may not have a chance. So throw that out the window. So Lawrence, he's got some explaining to do to his fans, and I think he needs to take care of that. And okay, I got to turn it off. He still got time to do it. They're not dead yet. And the biggest thing I wanted to talk about was the Fango media that I have partnership with now, and I'm going to be filming outside of Jaguar home games after they end, interviewing fans and getting their reaction. You have to go to Fango Media to check that out. Um, I'll be out there. I'll be in different locations every time. I might be on the west side, like I was this week. I may be on the east side. I could be across the street, um, at the fairground somewhere. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be all over the place. So if you want to see fan reactions to the Jaguar games, sign in, check me out, and let me show you what the video looks like from what I did in the last game. You'll have to go to Fango Media to find out, and you can look at all the other home games taking place. And it's a pretty interesting commentary that you hear from the fans. Some of it is good, some of it is a little far fetched, but all of it is all fun. So check out Fango Media for some interesting commentary. And like I say, that the Pac-12, they have picked up Boise State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Colorado State. And I think that is a big step to bringing the Pac-12 back to life. A lot of people left them for dead, and I just didn't think that was going to happen. 2 years is a long time, especially the way the college landscape has changed over the last year or so. So it's not inconceivable to me that the Pac-12 is going to come up with a couple more teams and beat the deadline to maintain a relevant bowl conference. So keep an eye on the Pac-12 as things move forward. Thursday night football, you got the Jets and the Patriots, and I'm not so sure if I'm excited about that matchup or not, but it's still NFL football. So when I get some more information to come at you, I'll be with you. But in the meantime, check me out on Fango Media. This has been Sports for Real.